It's hard making it big in Hollywood, and even harder when everyone's against you. Few have left a legacy, but what about the many whose careers were cut short? Number 10. Theta Bara. Bara was one of the most prolific silent film actresses of her generation. However, she had one of the shortest careers in the industry as well. She starred in just under 40 films from 1914 through 1926. Most of her work was lost during the 1937 Fox Vault fire. Still, her portraits as an Egyptian sex symbol remain. But did you know she actually hated her status as a Hollywood sex symbol? In fact, it was all based on a lie. Studios capitalized on her resemblance to Middle Eastern women. She was portrayed as a vamp in films, something she hated. Bara's real name was actually Theodora Burr Goodman. She didn't have an ounce of Egyptian heritage. Bara was once making $4,000 at the height of her career, yet she was reportedly unhappy with how Hollywood had typecasted her. There's a lot more to the story of how we missed out on what should have been a long-spanning career. She starred as Cleopatra in the 1917 biopic. It became her biggest hit to date. The actual film, however, was lost in the 1937 studio fire. Thankfully, her portraits as the Egyptian queen have remained. Studios realized that audiences loved Bara as Cleopatra. They hatched a plan to capitalize on Cleopatra's success. Hence, Theodora Burr became Theta Bara. They even gave her an exotic backstory to really sell the act. You'd be surprised at the lengths Hollywood would go to. Director Frank Powell wanted to create an air of mystique around Bara. He marketed his leading lady as the daughter of an Arab sheikh and a French woman. Powell told audiences that Bara was born and raised in the Sahara. This was to give her role as Cleopatra more credibility. It worked well for her 1917 film, but Bara soon became unhappy with the lie. She believed she was typecasted by her first film. Bara had urged Fox Studios to give her more wholesome heroine roles. The studio refused and cast her in the same roles as the lure of ambition. That was when Bara made a decision that impacted her career forever. She decided to let her contract with Fox expire. This was a risky move since Fox was the largest studio back then. Bara believed that her work as a more serious actress would soon gain recognition. Unfortunately, that never happened. The actress did try her hand at more wholesome heroine roles. For example, she starred in Romeo and Juliet. Critics, however, hated her in any role other than as a vamp. This impacted her career severely. Bara had gotten to a point where she wanted to quit acting altogether, but only after making one last movie and putting out a statement against typecasting. In 1926, Bara starred in Madam Mystery by Stan Laurel. Many believe that the film doubled as a statement against typecasting. Bara had reprised her role as a seductress. This time, though, she was more so parodying the role. Bara eventually passed away in 1955 from stomach cancer. It's sad to think that Hollywood wasted her potential for a fake persona. Typecasting is a real problem in Hollywood. It's one that exists even to this day. And the next person on this list knows a thing or two about it. Number 9. Sir Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee was initially rejected by studios because of his height. He stood tall at 6'4", and studios thought he was too tall. They believed that he couldn't be cast as a leading male because of it. This meant that Lee had to find work as something other than a charming hero on film. It was a match made in heaven when Hammer Horror approached him. They first cast him as Frankenstein's monster in the 1957 film Frankenstein. Hammer Horror was the only studio that appreciated Lee for his height. The actor enjoyed getting steady work after so long. Soon, though, he realized that his potential was being wasted with the studio. And you'd agree once you hear what Lee had to go through, plus how he begged Hammer Horror to let him out of his contract. Things got messy really soon. In 1958, Lee made a breakthrough starring as the lead in Dracula. The film has been nominated as one of the best British films of all time. Lee enjoyed the film's success and everything that came with it. He also agreed to sign on more films with Hammer Horror. That, however, was a big mistake. Hammer Horror only wanted him to work on the Dracula franchise. Lee went as far as saying that he was blackmailed into playing the role. He said that he didn't speak out of protest in the film Dracula, Prince of Darkness. The actor claimed that he didn't like the shady dialogue in the film. You're probably wondering, why'd he continue working as Dracula if he hated it that much? Well, there's a reason for this. Can you guess how many times Lee reprised his role as the Count of Darkness? Altogether, the actor was cast as Dracula 10 times. 7 of those were for Hammer horror films. Lee was highly critical of being typecast. In fact, he'd go to the press directly to air out his grievances. He once told the press that he hoped the films would fail. In 1976, Lee portrayed Dracula for the final time in Dracula and Son. By that time, the actor had stopped speaking in his films in protest. He once claimed that he begged productions to let him use actual good lines. However, they only ever wanted Dracula to hiss in movies. All this because his first film had done so well, and Lee regretted it. Still, it's sad to think that we missed out on so many good years, just because the industry got greedy. This next actress stuck her ground and said no. Unfortunately, all it did was get her blacklisted by a very popular director. Number 8. Tippy Hedren. The cases against Weinstein gained mega traction. Still, did you know that another actress tried to uncover this in the 60s? She tried to tell everyone how a leading producer had threatened to blacklist her. She might have been the first whistleblower in the industry. Unfortunately, no one believed her. She was ultimately blacklisted by the same producer. So who was this actress? None other than Natalie K. Hedren, better known as Tippy Hedren. Hedren kick-started her career in the industry as a model. She made brief appearances in commercials during the 50s. However, that was the extent of her acting career. Things changed when she got a call in the late 50s from Alfred Hitchcock. The mega producer had reportedly seen her in her Sago commercial. He liked her poise and style and wanted to offer her more work. Hedren claimed she was ecstatic, but that would soon change. Hitchcock worked on molding her as a Hollywood starlet for the next few years. He hired her personal stylists and line coaches. All the while, Hedren wasn't actually offered any roles. She'd record scenes from some of Hitchcock's previous films. The producer claimed this was to ensure she knew what she'd signed up for. In 1963, Hedren starred in her biggest hit yet, The Birds. You'd be surprised to know that the film traumatized Hedren. Let's find out why. So, Hedren was Hitchcock's prodigy through and through. He once told her that he was working extra hard with her. Hedren appreciated his efforts. She admitted that she'd learned more in a few months than her entire career. However, it soon came out that Hitchcock didn't do this for free. He wanted something in return, and Hedren was shocked. The actress revealed that Hitchcock wanted an intimate relationship with her. Hedren believed that he'd grown infatuated with her over the years. This came as a shock to the actress, since she believed he was acting as a father figure. She'd even met his wife and gone out for dinner with them. Hitchcock hurt Hedren in a way that's unimaginable. Sure, he derailed her career, but he also gave her scars to carry her whole life. All this just because she said no. So what happened? The English producer wanted to make the film as authentic as possible. This meant using live crows and some ravens. Hedren had agreed to the use of some real animals. However, for the final scene, she requested mechanical birds. It made sense. The final scene showed Hedren's character attacked by a swarm of birds. All she wanted was her safety. Hedren was determined to stick it through. She'd worked on the birds for months. The actress wasn't about to let Hitchcock bully her. However, this meant filming the scene with live birds for weeks. Her role earned her critical acclaim. However, she soon ended her partnership with Hitchcock. This meant that the producer blacklisted her from several projects. Of course, it impacted her career for decades. Her last major breakout role was in 1964 in Marine. Some people believe Hedren's story about Hitchcock. Some people, on the other hand, think she's lying. Just like that, what happened to Fatty Arbuckle is a case of he said, she said. Number 7. Rosco Fatty Arbuckle. Did you know that Rosco Arbuckle was responsible for launching the careers of Charlie Chaplin and Bob Hope? He was the first major silent film actor in history. His work earned him considerable recognition. Arbuckle was on his way to legendary status in the industry. His career, however, was cut short in 1922. That was when he was blacklisted by Hollywood. It was the biggest case of the decade. The details are shocking, and you'll want to know more. Arbuckle's career was kick-started with the Keystone Cops comedies. His considerable size was a major factor in earning him comedic roles. He, however, refused to partake in cliché gags. This added a whole new depth to the comedy scene. Arbuckle was making waves everywhere he went. Soon, he was offered the contract of a lifetime. It was the sort of offer that could change any actor's career for the better. Did you know that Paramount was willing to pay him $1 million a year? This was back in the 1910s. If the deal went through, Arbuckle would have been the richest celebrity of the century. Did it go through? No, because in 1922, Arbuckle's career was as good as dead. It was all because of the mysterious case of Virginia Rappy. Arbuckle wanted a break from his exhaustive routine in 1921. He traveled with Lowell Sherman and Fred Fishback to San Francisco. This was on Labor Day weekend. The trio intended to spend the weekend at a hotel. They planned on booking 3 rooms. One of the rooms would double as a party room. People who knew Arbuckle claimed that he was shy and timid around women. Bambina Delmont, however, claimed that Arbuckle was more than comfortable that night. She claimed that he took a liking to her friend, Virginia Rappy. The two chatted for a while and got more and more drunk. Eventually, Arbuckle went to another room with Virginia. What happened next? Your guess is as good as any. There are conflicting sides here. Let's hear both of them. So, the facts of the case are simple. Virginia and Arbuckle did go into the room together. Moments later, Virginia began convulsing. Arbuckle was the one who called for help. The hotel doctor came and inspected the situation. He believed that her symptoms were because of heavy drinking. Virginia and Bambina actually went back home that night. Now, here's where the stories start to divulge. Bambina claimed that Virginia had been assaulted. She believed that Arbuckle had his way with her while she was drunk. She also accused him of using a sharp tool to hurt her that night. No one could record Virginia's response, unfortunately. She died at the hospital just 2 days later. Arbuckle stuck through his claim that he didn't hurt Virginia. He believed that her symptoms were exasperated from a pre-existing medical condition. He also said that he never had any intention to sleep with Virginia that night. Arbuckle claimed that the two knew each other from before and were only talking that night. He said that he saw her hunched over the tub and vomiting. Arbuckle also claimed that he called the hotel manager to inspect the situation. He and a few other people saw her convulsing. He also claimed that he didn't stay later because he had to drive another partygoer home. In the end, Arbuckle was relieved of any guilt. That didn't mean his career wasn't over, though. Productions faced major backlash for working with the actor. The public was appalled at the details of the case. This was the first time the party scene of Hollywood was uncovered. Paramount withdrew its deal with the actor. Several producers refused to work with him. Most of his films were lost. Even his co-stars decided to distance themselves from him. In the end, Arbuckle tried to resurge his career through filmmaking. How'd that end out? Well, ironically, he passed away the night after he signed a major deal with Warner Brothers. Some believe that Hollywood abandoned Arbuckle. That may or may not be true. What's definitely true, though, is that the industry greatly let down Shelly Duval.
Of course I am!
Of course you are! Have you ever thought about my responsibilities?
Number 6. Shelly Duval. You probably remember the actress from her breakthrough role in The Shining. Shelly had established a commendable acting portfolio for herself. However, The Shining really was her crowning achievement. The role put her on the map. Everyone wanted to see more from the talented actress. So did they get what they'd wished for? Not really. It still surprises some people to this day that Shelly quit acting after The Shining. It's a mysterious case, and today we'll finally tell you what really happened. Robert Altman was the first director to recognize Shelly's potential. The actress had never imagined herself on screen. She repeatedly told Altman she wouldn't act, but eventually relented. This kick-started a very successful career in Hollywood. Shelly saw critical acclaim for her role in Three Women. Everyone loved the actress for her bubbly personality. It was actually one of the reasons why Altman had pursued her. Everyone on set believed Shelly was the kindest actress in Hollywood. Then, Stanley Kubrick decided to push her to her limit. Kubrick is the man behind 1980's The Shining. Three Women might have earned Shelly acclaim, but the movie was not a success. Shelly had been enjoying her time in Hollywood and wanted a breakthrough. She believed that The Shining would be a great opportunity, but she was wrong. So, what exactly did the actress have to go through for the role? The director was reportedly relentless. He treated everyone with disrespect, but specifically Shelly. Crew members believed this was because she was too timid to fight back. They saw Kubrick isolate her from the rest of the crew. She was also made to retake scenes, sometimes over 100 times. At one point, Kubrick made her shoot crying scenes for over 12 hours. Of course, all this took a toll on Shelly. The Shining might have been a hit, but it came at the cost of her mental health. This was the first time Shelly saw the despicable side of the industry. She didn't like it, and she didn't want to stay. Honestly, who could blame her? She did go on to star as Olive Oyl in Popeye, but the film was panned. In the end, Shelly thought the best thing to do was quit acting. She did start her own production house, Think Entertainment. Still, it was a career that was cut short because of Hollywood's toxicity. Something similar happened in Lena Horne's case, too.
No why there's no sun up in the sky.
Number 5. Lena Horne. Horne was one of the few black actresses in Hollywood when she started back in the 1930s. Besides acting, she was a talented musician and a phenomenal director. Ultimately, it was because of Hollywood's blatant racism that her career was cut short. Did you know that she was once cast to play the lead in Till the Clouds Roll By? Everyone remembers Ava Gardner in the lead role of Julie Laverne. However, the role was once Lena's for the taking. She was a better fit, and the studio agreed. So, why wasn't she offered the role of a lifetime? The studio found it hard to replace black actors' scenes with white actors. This was a huge problem because some states segregated films too. This meant that studios would only use Lena for her voice. The arrangement worked at the start of her career. She enjoyed minor cameo roles on film and singing credits. Eventually, she'd had enough of the blatant racism. Everyone knew that Lena was a talented actress. She tried to lobby for the rights of black actors in Hollywood for her entire career. It wasn't until they offered Ava Gardner the role that she knew she had to switch things up. Lena quit the industry in protest. She claimed that she wasn't going to spend more time in Hollywood. After all, they didn't appreciate her talent to begin with. Lena spent the remainder of her life as a singer and civil rights activist. She never returned to the silver screen. Hollywood truly wasted Lena's potential because of their racist practices.
I don't know how to run a newspaper, Mr. Thatcher. I just try everything I can think of.
Charles, you know perfectly well there's not the slightest proof that
Number 4. Orson Wells. Citizen Kane might just be one of the best movies the world has ever seen. We, of course, have Orson Wells to thank for it. Not only did he star in the production, but he also co-wrote it. You'd think that something like Citizen Kane would propel his career, right? Well, it didn't. While Wells had a commendable run in Hollywood, it was nothing to write home about. The actor and filmmaker was often the subject of controversies. Some had to do with Citizen Kane and some because of his political leanings. Let's take a look at how Hollywood nipped Wells' career in the bud. Citizen Kane was based on the life of William Randolph Hearst. He's best remembered for creating a newspaper chain and media company. Hearst was as influential as he was infamous. Herman Mankiewicz, who co-wrote the film, used to be one of Hearst's friends. He'd since come to hate him, and Wells felt the same. They weren't too coy about the inspiration for the corrupt lead for Citizen Kane. The film might have been a success in every sense of the word. That, however, didn't mean that it didn't come with any repercussions. Notably, Hearst was greatly offended by the portrayal. He also didn't appreciate how details of his many affairs were being made public. So, what did he try to do? Derail Wells' career, obviously. Hearst bribed theaters and publications to pan Citizen Kane. His efforts were successful enough. The film could only be released to a limited audience because of Hearst. It was acclaimed by critics but didn't do well at the box office. Also, it created a lifelong feud with one of the most powerful men in the country. Wells continued to work on more projects, though. Hearst's interference caused a few delays, but nothing substantial. It wasn't until 1946 that he was blacklisted for good. Wells had mentioned he preferred semi-dictatorship himself once. It also didn't help that he had been openly critical of U.S. politics at the time. Plus, he'd been spending most of the year in Europe. This all led to Hollywood placing him on the red channels. Wells's career practically started and ended with Citizen Kane. The film created a legacy for him, but it also haunted him. Save for Hearst's involvement, Wells only ever wanted to replicate what Citizen Kane had done. Production houses, however, weren't willing to experiment with new scripts. Wells wasn't willing to confer to traditional scripts either. What happened then? Well, what else could have happened? Wells had been blacklisted, but there was no love lost. He already hated how the industry had practically failed him anyway.
First, I should like to know whether the quality of my last answer was acceptable, since I am still on the stand.
Number 3. Dalton Trumbo. What do you know about McCarthyism? All you need to know is that Dalton Trumbo, a talented screenwriter, was blacklisted because of it. He was accused of having affiliations with the Communist Party. You might remember him as one of the Hollywood 10. But before that, he was on his way to creating a lasting impact in the industry. His works, such as Roman Holiday and Spartacus, were mega hits. Still, Trumbo was forced to write under pseudonyms in fear of persecution. This was an obvious setback for the professional. How big of a setback, really? Enough to be considered wasted potential. Individuals were targeted for their political beliefs. This offset any standing they had in Hollywood. So, despite his immense talent, Trumbo's true contributions were obscured. His achievements were later acknowledged. However, it was a little too late by then. So, how did Trumbo navigate through such a tricky time? He was resilient. He continued writing and contributing to the film industry. Yes, under restrictive circumstances, though. His determination to pursue his passion in the face of injustice serves as a testament to his unwavering commitment to his craft. Trumbo's story is one of perseverance and resilience. It serves as a reminder of endurance, strength, and resilience, just like in Lloyd Bridges' case.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking. Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
Number 2. Lloyd Bridges. It'd be fair to say that the McCarthy era was a tough time for Hollywood professionals. Several actors, actresses, and studio execs found themselves out of work. They were almost immediately blacklisted, even on suspicion. Lloyd Bridges' case, however, is somewhat different. He openly admitted to having ties with the Communist Party. The actor found critical acclaim for his role in the satirical parody Airplane. He went from being a contract performer for Columbia to a leading man. Lloyd would then go on to star in several movies and television shows. He was well regarded as a comedic genius. So, when did things start to go wrong? Lloyd had once been a member of the Actors Laboratory Theater. It was a politically active theater company. During the Cold War, it was revealed that the company had ties to the Communist Party USA. So, Lloyd technically didn't admit to having any involvement with the Communist Party himself. You have to remember that these were tricky times in the US. Any association in any which way could get you blacklisted. So in the 1950s, Lloyd found himself out of work. His career did see a resurgence with Airplane. However, he missed out on the golden era because of the blacklisting. Lloyd's career was somehow salvaged, unlike several other actors on today's list. The last person on this list might come as a surprise to many. You don't want to miss the big reveal.
Didn't you bring your glasses?
What glasses?
Don't you?
Number 1. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn's best remembered today for several things, most notably her status as a sex symbol in Hollywood. The actress stepped into the industry using her charms but failed to make waves as an actress. Why's that? Well, you'll be surprised at what we've uncovered. Did you know that her films grossed a total of $200 million by the time of her death in 1962? That would be the equivalent of $2 billion in 2023. She's also regarded as one of the 6th best leading ladies of all time. You'd be surprised to know, though, that she hated most of her work. Monroe's career started as a pinup model. She'd been working in a factory when she was approached by a photographer. She appeared in a few scandalous shots before making her way into Hollywood. Monroe's first few films did decently well. However, it wasn't until after her nude photographs were released that things started to change. To the actress's credit, she embraced the apparent scandal. She refused to be blacklisted by Hollywood and stood firm. Her resilience paved the way for several actors and actresses in the industry. Audiences flocked to her films because they were obsessed with her. Unfortunately, she soon came to hate it. Why? Well, Monroe believed that she was being typecasted. Her films, such as Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, showed her as a stereotypical blonde. Fox would only allow her to work in movies that featured the same roles. This meant that she hated working on some of her biggest hits. For example, How to Marry a Millionaire and Monkey Business. So, what did she do about it? As always, Monroe wasn't about to back down without a fight. She realized that directors were typecasting her and said no. This included her refusal to star in The Girl in Pink Tights. This caused a rift with the studio, but Monroe apparently didn't care. She stood her ground, saying she'd rather work on serious projects. Unfortunately, directors found it hard to work with her. Monroe hadn't had the best education. Plus, she was thwarted into the industry without any formal training. Directors would pair her with seasoned actors. This meant that they'd have to work twice as hard on her scenes. Most of her co-stars hated her for making them do retakes as often. Can you guess which movie this was? It was none other than her box office hit, Some Like It Hot. While her work was well received, her methods weren't. Production houses were always at odds with her. Directors would typecast her. Co-stars refused to work with her. Marilyn tried to go against the grain, but it didn't often work. Then, of course, there was the fact that she'd married an alleged communist. Her marriage to playwright Arthur Miller destroyed her reputation, too. Everyone warned her against dating Miller, let alone marrying him. She went ahead with it anyway, as another act of defiance. The marriage didn't last, but its impact on her career did. Some people even believed that the FBI was to blame for Monroe's failing career. This was because of her birthday address to President John F. Kennedy. The FBI didn't appreciate that she just publicly announced their affair. They wanted to keep her quiet for good. Some people even believe they ended her. The actress lived a complicated life. She was typecasted by everyone in the industry. Everyone saw her as a stereotypical blonde, and this hurt her self-esteem. She was heavily reliant on drugs toward the end of her life. A concoction of the wrong ones ultimately took her life in 1962. Make sure to check out some of our other videos on the dark side of Hollywood while you're here.